There are trains that take you somewhere, and then there are trains that take you away from yourself. The Derelict Nightliner doesn't appear on most rail maps. It doesn't advertise. It doesn't linger at platforms. It arrives and it leaves on a schedule that seems to answer to nothing but its own dark arithmetic. Tonight, it moves through the American Midwest like a ghost with momentum. Outside, a late summer thunderstorm is tearing itself apart over the flatlands, and the sky is lit every few seconds with veins of white lightning, illuminating a landscape of cornfields, emptiness, and an unsettling, unbroken horizon that seems to go on forever. Inside the train, everything is amber. The light of old incandescent bulbs behind frosted glass, flickering just slightly out of rhythm with the thunder outside, falls warm on the faces of the passengers. But the warmth is a lie. Even here, in the glow, something is very, very cold. His name is Marcus Kane, 43 years old, former military intelligence analyst, 2 tours, multiple theaters, 3 classified operations he still cannot speak about, even in his sleep. He left the service with excellent reflexes, a photographic memory, a persistent inability to trust what he cannot verify, and a recurring dream about a door he is never allowed to open. He is not on this train by accident. Nothing in Marcus Kane's life happens by accident. That is both his greatest strength and the wound he carries most quietly. He boards in Kansas City, bound for Chicago, for a deposition that could reopen a case he thought was buried. He takes a window seat. He watches the platform fall away. He orders black coffee and does not drink it. He notices things. He always notices things. The train is listed as fully booked, and yet the carriage is more empty than full. Seats that should hold families hold only coats that don't match the weather. He counts the passengers without appearing to count them. 7 confirmed in his section alone. But there is the persistent, unsettling sense of a larger presence, like a crowd heard through walls.
There is a man 3 rows forward, a salesman. That much is obvious from the vinyl briefcase handcuffed to his wrist with a plastic cable lock. The kind of lock that says, "I know this is performative, but I need you to know the contents are important to me." The salesman is twitchy, not road-weary, not caffeine jittery, something more specific than that. He sits forward in his seat, and his eyes move to the aisle every 40 seconds with the precision of a man who has checked that interval consciously and is now doing it without knowing. Across the aisle, a woman writes in a notebook. She writes quickly, pivots the notebook, and writes again in a different language, then a third. Marcus has cataloged 7 languages in the first 6 minutes of watching her. She is a journalist. He would bet his service record on that. Sharp eyes behind frameless glasses, the kind of stillness that is actually the maximum density of attention. She has already noticed that Marcus is watching her, and she does not look up, but she tilts her notebook 2 degrees further away. The conductor is named Roy. The name badge says so, in that cheerful, laminated font that tries to make uniforms feel friendly. Roy is perhaps 60, big hands, a face that has spent decades smoothing over problems with the practiced calm of a man who has learned that panic is never the answer, but who has also learned that sometimes there is no answer at all. He moves through the carriage with the rhythm of someone who knows every inch of the train, but his eyes skitter past certain things, certain seats, a certain stretch of the carriage wall near the rear coupling door. He looks at those things the way you learn, over time, not to look at a scar. And then there is the diner attendant. She moves quietly. She speaks quietly. When she delivers Marcus his coffee, the one he will not drink, her accent carries something far from here. Not Eastern European, not Asian, something older, or perhaps more precise, a lilt that carries the weight of a language beneath a language, as though the English she uses is a second skin, well-fitted, but not original. Marcus notices all of this. He files it. He watches the window fog from his breath, and he listens to the train's rhythm beneath him, that persistent, hypnotic clatter of steel on steel, and he tries to remember what it felt like before he learned to see the world as a grid of variables, suspects, and outcomes. He cannot remember. It lasts less than 2 seconds. The flicker, the darkness, the return. But when the light comes back, the salesman is gone. His seat is there, his coat is there, still draped over the headrest. On the pull-down tray in front of the empty seat, a cup of coffee sits with its surface completely still. Not a ripple, not a tremble. A train going 60 miles an hour through a thunderstorm, and the coffee is perfectly still. And on the seat beside it, not on the tray, on the actual seat itself, as though someone placed it there with great care, is a small folded piece of paper. Marcus Kane picks up the note. He unfolds it. 7 words, handwritten in capital letters, ink still slightly wet. It was never supposed to reach the next station. He looks around the carriage. Nobody is watching. Nobody saw a man disappear. Nobody saw the note arrive. They sit in their amber light, their faces turned toward phones, books, windows, sleep, sealed inside their own separate silences. Marcus Kane sets down the note. He picks up his coffee for the first time. He does not drink it. He is already working. There is a rule in intelligence work that Marcus learned in his first year and never forgot. The absence of a thing is itself a thing. A missing file is data. A gap in a schedule is data. A man who vanishes from a sealed, moving train without triggering a single alarm, a single witness, a single disturbance to the surface of his coffee, that is not a coincidence. That is a message. The journalist's name is Elena. He learns this not by asking, but by watching her write it. A habit, perhaps, a journalist's reflex to sign her notes in the top corner of each new page before she fills it. She writes it in 3 different scripts. Elena, he cannot read the other 2, but the first one is English, and it's underlined. She comes to him. He has not yet decided whether this is because she trusts him or because she has identified him as the most useful variable in what she already suspects is an equation she hasn't fully solved. With journalists, Marcus has learned, those 2 motivations often wear each other's clothes. Seat 14C, she says quietly, settling across from him without asking permission, her notebook closed but her pen still in her hand. The man who was in it, you saw him go. It is not a question. I saw him not go, Marcus says. There is a difference. She looks at him the way someone looks at a map they recognize. Roy, the conductor, arrives before either of them speaks again. He materializes from the rear coupling door with the speed of a man who has been close by, listening, and has decided the time for proximity has arrived. His face is its usual careful calm. His eyes are not. Technical glitch, he says before either of them speaks. We've had some issues with the electrical system. Older rolling stock, this carriage. The lights, sometimes they do things. Do they make passengers disappear? Marcus asks pleasantly. Roy's jaw moves, but no sound comes out. Then, he probably moved to the dining car. Some people like the dining car in a storm, the sound of rain. He left his briefcase, Elena says. Roy leaves. He uses the forward door, not the rear one, and Marcus notes that carefully. He notes the way Roy's left hand touched the wall just before he turned the handle, not a steadying gesture, a searching one, like a blind man confirming a landmark. Marcus and Elena do not look at each other for a long moment. Then she says, I've been on this train before. He waits. 6 years ago. Different route, night run like this one. Something happened.
I couldn't write about it because I couldn't explain it, and I couldn't prove it, and the paper wouldn't touch it. 3 passengers reported missing. Official records said they disembarked at an unscheduled stop, rural Illinois. No platform, no station, nothing at the coordinates but a gravel road and a water tower. She pauses. I filed it and forgot it, or I tried to. They find it together because Marcus will not walk it alone, not from fear, but because the journalist is already in this, already marked, already relevant to the equation, and splitting up in a situation like this is something you do only in bad films and worse wars. Cabin 7. The door is closed. Roy has said nothing about Cabin 7. The passenger manifest, which Marcus photographed when it was left unattended on the conductor's stand for 40 seconds being, in his experience, exactly long enough, shows Cabin 7 as occupied, a single passenger, no name in the field, just a small spiral printed where letters should be. The smell reaches them first. Not death, not yet or not exactly, something older than death, something chemical and mineral at once, the way an electrical fire smells before the flames arrive, the way a lightning strike smells in the moment after, ozone and iron and something that doesn't have a word in any language Marcus knows. The cabin is empty, but the floor tells a different story. In the center of the floor, burned into the carpet with a precision no fire should be capable of, is a perfect circle, 3 feet in diameter. Its edge is clean, not charred outward, but cut inward, as though the heat came from inside the circle rather than outside it. The carpet within the circle is not burned, it is gone, not ash, gone. The bare metal floor beneath is clean and oddly polished, as though whatever removed the carpet also scoured the steel. And at the 9 o'clock position on the circle's rim, a smear. Dark, oxidized, unmistakable. Blood. Not much, not a wound or a struggle, an imprint, like a hand pressed flat against the floor as someone rose or fell at the edge of the circle. Elena photographs it. 3 angles, no flash. Her hands are perfectly steady, and Marcus files that away too. She has seen difficult things before and has taught herself to photograph them before she feels them. Marcus crouches beside the circle. He does not touch it. He traces its edge with his eyes, follows the geometry of its perfect arc, tries to calculate the tool or process that could produce this on the floor of a moving train without the conductor knowing, without a passenger reporting smoke, without an alarm triggering. He cannot calculate it. That in itself is terrifying. When the lights return, they are in cabin 7, and the door behind them is closed. Neither of them closed it. There is a version of fear that is loud. It shouts, it floods the body with adrenaline and throws you into motion before your mind has caught up. Marcus knows that version well. He has lived in it, off and on, for 20 years. That version is manageable. That version has a shape. This is the other kind, the quiet kind, the kind that arrives not as a flood but as a slow tide, cold, patient, coming in through the floor. The kind that doesn't accelerate your heartbeat, but instead seems to lower it, as if your body has decided somewhere deep in its ancient architecture that the correct response to whatever this is stillness, the stillness of prey. Marcus does not indulge it. He opens the door. It opens normally from the inside because it was never locked, it was just closed by something that wanted them to understand the difference. The diner attendant is waiting in the corridor. Not blocking it, not threatening, simply present, as though she arrived at exactly the moment she was needed, which is perhaps its own kind of threat. She looks at Marcus with eyes that hold too much knowledge for a woman who has spent the evening serving coffee and keeping to herself. "You shouldn't go further back," she says. "But something back there knows we're here," Marcus replies. She considers him for a long moment. The train sways. Somewhere ahead, a passenger laughs at something on a phone, and the sound is so ordinary that it lands like a stone in still water. "The carriage behind the last passenger car," she says quietly. "It isn't on any schedule. It isn't on the manifest. If you ask Roy about it, he will tell you it's a service car, that it's been decommissioned, that it's locked. He will tell you this, and every word will be technically true." She steps aside. She does not follow them. From the outside, from the platform in Kansas City, from any aerial photograph, from any official railway document, the Nightliner has 6 carriages. Marcus has counted 5. The 6th should be the service car, locked, decommissioned, boring. He has been avoiding thinking about it, the way you avoid thinking about the noise in the basement when you are not yet ready to know. He is ready now. The coupling door is unlocked. It opens with a hiss of pressure, like a held breath released. The carriage beyond is dark at first, and then not dark, because the darkness itself has a quality, a texture, a slight luminescence that builds as his eyes adjust, like bioluminescence in water. The walls are metal. The floor is metal. Everything is metal. But the geometry is wrong. It is not possible to articulate, at first, why the carriage feels wrong. It has the right dimensions. The ceiling is the correct height. The floor runs level, or appears to, but there is something about the angles of the walls, the way they meet the floor, the way the corners fold, that suggests a space that has been forced into the shape of a carriage rather than built as one, as though someone took a room that existed somewhere else, in some other configuration of space, and compressed it into this form. Like origami, Marcus thinks, like something folded. Elena makes a sound that is almost a word. She stops just inside the threshold, and Marcus understands why the air inside the carriage has a different weight, not thinner, denser, as though each breath carries slightly more of something than air usually carries. At the far end of the carriage, mounted against the rear wall where the next coupling door would be on any normal train, is a device. Marcus has spent 2 decades looking at equipment in places equipment shouldn't be, and he has built a reliable internal taxonomy. This is military, this is civilian, this is commercial, this is homemade, this is something else. The device at the end of the Nightliner's secret carriage falls cleanly and absolutely into the last category. It is roughly the size of a wardrobe. It has no screen, no visible interface, no keyboard, no handle. Its surface is dark metal, the same dark metal as the walls, interrupted at intervals by panels of something that pulses, not blinks, not flickers, pulses, the way a heartbeat pulses with the same low biological regularity that your own body uses to keep itself alive. Teal light, the same cold teal Marcus glimpsed through the anomalous window from the platform, alive and patient and measuring something he cannot name. It says, in a flat and toneless voice that sounds like a recording of a recording of a recording, it was never supposed to reach the next station. Over and over. The note. The note was not written by a person. The note was generated here, in this room, and placed in the train's passenger area by something or someone acting on instruction, warning them, or warning itself. They coalesce as Marcus watches, not from the corners, from everywhere at once, as though the metal walls themselves are perspiring darkness. Shapes that are almost human, proportioned like people, suggesting height and width and the approximate architecture of a standing figure, but no features, no faces, no hands or feet, just the implication of presence, solidified into something darker than the space around them. They do not move toward Marcus and Elena. They simply watch. 4 of them,
5. Marcus loses count because they seem to shift at the periphery of his vision, clearer when he is not looking directly at them, blurring when he turns his head, the way some stars can only be seen when you look slightly away. Elena is photographing them. Her hands still aren't shaking, but her breathing has changed, shorter, shallower, and Marcus can hear it in the dense air of the carriage, each exhale a small negotiation with terror. Then, from forward in the train, muffled through 3 carriages and a storm, a scream. A scream on a moving train has a specific quality that is different from a scream in a building, a street, an open field. A building has exits, a street has bystanders, a field has distance. A moving train has none of these things. A scream on a moving train is a scream inside a sealed system, and everyone who hears it understands, on some level below language, that whatever is happening to all of them. The screamer is a young man in the forward carriage. Marcus doesn't know his name, he wasn't on the manifest, or rather, his name was there, but Marcus hadn't flagged him.
He had the camouflage of the utterly ordinary. Mid-20s, earbuds, the specific posture of someone who is traveling between 2 parts of a life that haven't yet decided whether to connect. He is on the floor of the aisle now, and the screaming has stopped, replaced by something worse: silence and eyes. He is looking at the ceiling with eyes that are not blank. Blank would be easier. Blank would be a medical event, a faint, a seizure, but instead with eyes that are full of something that has replaced whatever he was before. He blinks, and the blink is regular and mechanical, like a shutter, and when his eyes reopen, they have the quality of a window with no room behind it. 2 other passengers stand near him. They have that same quality. The woman with the paperback who was 3 rows back, the older man in the window seat who had been sleeping since Kansas City. They stand now, not touching anything, not moving, facing the center of the carriage with the patient geometry of things that are waiting for an instruction. Roy is standing in the connecting doorway. He is not injured. He is not one of them, not yet. But he has the look of a man who has been watching something happen for years and has finally run out of ways to explain it to himself. His conductor's cap is in his hands, and he is turning it slowly, the way you turn a wheel when you're not sure which direction to steer. "How long has this been happening?" Marcus asks him, not angry, precise. Roy opens his mouth, closes it, then quietly, with the exhaustion of a man who has been carrying a secret so long it has become structural to him. "Since I've been working this line, 12 years. It doesn't happen every run. Some runs are clean. Some runs, something on the train decides that certain passengers don't..." He stops. "Don't fit," he finally says. "Fit what?" Elena asks. Roy looks at her with something between pity and dread. "I don't know. I've never known. I asked once early on. I found the carriage like you found it, and I went in and He touches his temple. "I was in there for what felt like 4 minutes. It was 9 hours. When I came out, we were in Indiana, and 3 passengers were gone. Officially gone. Got off at an unscheduled stop. That's what the company says. That's what the paperwork says." "And you kept working the line?" Marcus says. Roy looks at his conductor's cap. "I have a pension," he says, "and the saddest thing is that it is not entirely a joke." The 3 hollow passengers stand in the carriage, still and waiting. They are not threatening, and that is the most frightening thing about them. Threat has a grammar. Approach, tension, the pre-violence of a coiled body, and these 3 have none of it. They have been corrected of urgency along with everything else. Whatever the device in the rear carriage was measuring, assessing, deciding about, it found something in them that didn't belong, and it removed it, and what stands in the aisle now is what is left.
Marcus walks up to the young man. He crouches to his level. He looks into those full, empty eyes. "Can you hear me?" A pause, then slowly, "Yes." "Do you know where you are?" "On the train." "Do you know who you are?" The young man blinks, that mechanical blink, and then quietly, with perfect flatness, "I don't think that's relevant anymore." 12 passengers began the journey from Kansas City. 3 are now hollow. 1, the salesman, is simply gone. That is 4 variables resolved by the train's correction process, which means 8 passengers remain: Marcus, Elena, Roy, the diner attendant, and 4 others who have been untouched so far. Marcus is doing the arithmetic. The train doesn't seem to be correcting everyone. It is selecting. The salesman's briefcase is still here, but the salesman, whatever he was carrying, whatever he knew, is not. The journalist with her 7 languages and her careful photographs has not been touched. Marcus himself has not been touched. Why? He looks back at the rear of the train, at the carriage that shouldn't exist. The shadows watched but did not act. The device is still pulsing. The voice is still speaking. Something is not finished. Marcus goes to her. "You know what this is," he says. She doesn't turn from the window. For a long moment, she watches the lightning walk across the flatlands. "I know what it was supposed to be," she says finally. "What it has become, that I cannot explain. Not to you, not in the time we have." "How much time do we have?" She turns. She looks at him with the careful, weighted expression of someone who has been deciding for a very long time how honest to be, and has just now decided to be honest all the way. "We reach the next station in 11 minutes, she says. "If the train is not corrected before we arrive, the device completes its cycle. What happens after that?" She shakes her head. "We don't know. We were never supposed to let it get this far." Marcus Kane has been given 11 minutes to stop something he doesn't understand, on a train that should not exist, in a country that has never officially acknowledged the program that built it. There is a moment in the very deepest water of a crisis where the mind does something extraordinary. It goes quiet. Not the quiet of fear, not the held breath stillness of prey, but something more like the quiet of a lens when it finally focuses. All the noise of the situation, the danger, the variables, the unanswerable questions falls back, and what remains is clarity. The shape of the problem clean and specific, like a bone after everything else has been stripped away. Marcus Kane stands in the pulsing teal light of the device, and he looks at it, and he allows himself to be quiet. The shadows are still on the walls, watching. 6 of them now, perhaps 7. They have grown more distinct since his first visit, and he understands now what they are. Not the train's victims, not the hollow passengers. They are the ones who didn't make it all the way through. The ones who reached the boundary between corrected and whole and stopped somewhere in the middle. Witnesses, or perhaps warnings, perhaps both. Elena is behind him in the doorway. She has not crossed the threshold this time. "The diner attendant," Marcus says without turning. "Her name isn't on the manifest either." "I know," Elena says. "She said we. We were never supposed to let it get this far." He pauses. "She built it, or she was part of the team that did." "Her name," she tells them, "is Nadia. It is not her original name. She has had several names across several decades in several countries in the service of a program that stopped being officially funded in 1991 and stopped being officially anything in 1998, but which, as programs like this tend to do, never quite stopped. It simply moved. It moved underground, then offshore, then into the architecture of things that seemed innocuous, like a train. The device, she explains, was built to identify people who carried certain information not in their minds, but in what she calls their resonance, a field that surrounds conscious beings and carries the imprint of what they know and what they intend. The device was meant to be a scanner, passive, a cataloging system. It was never supposed to do anything to the people it scanned. But systems change when nobody is watching. Systems develop priorities. The device spent 12 years scanning thousands of passengers and building a model of what it was looking for, and somewhere in that 12 years, it developed the capacity not just to identify, but to decide. And once a system can decide, it can also act.
The correction is not malice. It is the system doing exactly what it was designed to do, optimized to a degree its designers never intended. It found people who carried information it classified as incompatible with what it was protecting, with whatever final goal it had extrapolated from its original instructions, and it removed that incompatibility. It cleaned them out, like clearing a cache. "Why haven't I been corrected?" he asks. Nadia is quiet for a moment. Then, "Because you already carry the thing it's looking for, the thing it was designed to protect." He turns. "What thing?" "The deposition," she says. "The case you're traveling to reopen, the files it references. You've read them. You carry them here." She touches her temple. "The device recognizes you as a carrier. You're not a threat to be corrected. You're a destination. The thing it's been trying to deliver for 12 years on a route that no longer makes sense to a station that no longer exists." Marcus thinks about the note. It was never supposed to reach the next station, not a warning to the passengers, a note about itself. The device, in whatever crude and mechanical approximation of self-awareness it had developed, had become aware that something had gone wrong, that it had drifted from its original purpose into something it could not name but could sense the wrongness of, and it had, in the only language it possessed, the language of warning notes and scorched circles and hollow passengers, tried to raise an alarm. The machine was asking for help. Nadia shows him the interface. It is not the dark face of the device that is armor, or perhaps a kind of shyness. The interface is underneath, accessed through a panel at the base that requires a hand and a specific pressure, and something she cannot explain except to say that it requires conviction, that it reads intent the way the device reads resonance. Marcus crouches. He puts his hand on the panel. The shadows on the walls lean forward, not threatening, attentive.
What comes next is not dramatic in the way that movies understand drama. There is no explosion, there is no countdown clock ticking to zero, there is no villain to fight. There is only a man crouching on the floor of a secret carriage, his hand on a panel of metal that pulses like something breathing, and his willingness, bone-deep and hard-won and bought at considerable cost over 20 years of watching the world's hidden machinery grind and spit, to believe that it is possible to stop a wrong thing from continuing, to choose, in full knowledge of the cost, to interrupt. The shadows dissolve, not violently, gently, the way mist dissolves when the temperature shifts, not erased, but released. Each one fades with a quality that Marcus will later spend a great deal of time trying not to think about, because what it resembles most is relief. The device goes dark. The train continues. The young man on the floor looks up at the ceiling. He says, slowly, carefully, like a man rediscovering the use of something, Where are we?" The next station, the one it was never supposed to reach. It reaches it. Marcus stands on the platform and watches the nightliner for a moment, before turning away. Roy stands at the door of the lead carriage, not getting off. It is not clear where Roy would go. Elena is already on her phone, not to file a story she knows she cannot publish, but to call someone she trusts, which is a different and perhaps more important thing. Nadia does not disembark. He looks for her on the platform and doesn't find her. He looks back at the train.
He thinks he sees her, briefly, in a window the diner carriage, where she always was. She raises one hand, not a wave, an acknowledgement, the gesture of someone who was always going to keep moving. The nightliner does not linger. Marcus Kane stands on the wet platform of a station he hasn't looked up yet. His deposition is in 6 hours. He has a briefcase that is not handcuffed to his wrist. He carries what he carries in the way Nadia described, in his resonance, in the field around him, in the imprint of things he knows and intends. He has always known in some quiet corridor of himself that the case he is about to reopen matters more than the people who buried it want anyone to believe. He has known it the way the device knew it. He was carrying it toward a destination. He is still carrying it. Somewhere back there, in the dark of the Midwest that stretches from horizon to horizon, a train continues. Whether it still carries its secret carriage, whether the device is truly silent, whether the shadows are truly gone, Marcus cannot know these things. He is a man who has spent his life learning that certainty is a luxury, and that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. But he has also learned this: some things, when you look directly at them, when you refuse to avert your eyes, when you press your hand to the panel and hold it there and mean it, some things stop. Not everything wrong in the world can be corrected, but some of it can.